November 15, 2021 meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome, everyone. We have the invocation by Commissioner Michael Booth, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. Would you please stand with me for the invocation and pledge? Good evening, Lord. Thanks for stopping by with us tonight. Hope we don't disappoint you. We thank you for another day of life. Let us not take it for granted. We ask that you strengthen us and help us to always do what is right for our family, our friends, and our neighbors. Help us to heal and to hear one another. Let us listen to our community. Bring us together, unite us, do not divide us. Strengthen our commitment to be the positive change that is so badly needed at this time. As has been said many times, we must live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, hey, I got it.
All the cakes is about.
Again, good evening. At this time, we have two members of the Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council here, and we would ask them to approach the podium and please identify themselves as well as give us a few comments.
Hello, my name is Olivia Cody. I am a junior at Northwood Temple Academy. I am the membership chair of Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council, and I am also the vice chair of the North Carolina State Youth Council.
Good evening. My name is Tyreek Thompson. I'm the financial planning chair of Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council. I'm a senior and I go to 71st, and I'm 17 years old.
Welcome.
We are both so excited to be here with y'all today and report on some events coming up in the new holiday season. At this time, Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council is planning for the holiday season at the end of the year. During December, we are excited to continue our successful and award-winning event called Jingle Tree. During December, we are excited to continue this event. We give foster kids Christmas gifts for the season, and we pick them off a digital Jingle Tree. We also will hold Adopt-A-Teen. In this event, people can donate funds for the gifts to be bought. We are also thrilled to continue this event this year.
Oh, let's take it off. Well, again, thank you for allowing us to be here, and I hope you'll have a good time.
Thank y'all.
Stay around.
Well, thank you both for being here, and we're glad that we know who the financial person is of the organization. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This leads us to our public comment period of your nightly meeting. 15 minutes is set aside to hear comments from the public. We are asking that all speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and anyone, as they come to the lectern that signed up, please give their name and their address. Thank you.
And thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have 5 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Bobby Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Hernandez. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Kathy Greggs.
Kathy Greggs. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Carla Acaza.
Carla Apaza. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Keith Gibbs.
Welcome, Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you. Fourth, but first, I guess. Good evening. My name is Keith Gibbs, and I am President and Chief Operating Officer of Fayetteville Comic-Con Incorporated. In 2015, Mr. Michael Choudhury and Mrs. Pam Choudhury brought a one-day Comic-Con to Cumberland County with attendance exceeding all projections. I joined the team in 2016 to help transition the show to a 2-day convention and worked with the Choudhuries in building one of the largest mid-sized Comic-Cons in the Carolinas. Once-a-year shows in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 were more heavily attended year to year, with our fall 2019 show approaching 10,000 fans in attendance over 2 days at the Crown Expo Center. For those who are unfamiliar, a comic book convention, or Comic-Con, is an event with a primary focus on comic books and comic book culture, in which comic book fans gather to meet creators, experts, and otherwise each other. We feature a wide variety of activities and panels, with a large number of attendees participating in cosplay than most other types of fan conventions. Like other conventions now found in every major city in the U.S., we include a large range of pop culture and entertainment elements across virtually all genres, including animation, anime, manga, toys, collectible card games, video games, web comics, and science fiction fantasy novels. Fayetteville Comic-Con was set to expand it to 2 shows, spring and fall, in 2020, before the COVID-19 pandemic interrupted our plans. However, in June of this year, we were the first major convention to return to the Carolinas and the first show at the Crown Expo Center. We followed the spring offering with our fall show, completing in 2021 what we had planned to accomplish in 2020, bringing 2 shows a year to fans of comic books and anime in and around Cumberland County. Our attendees are approximately 30% under the age of 18, 30% aged 19 to 35, and 40% over the age of 35. Our attendees are 60% from within Cumberland County, with 30% living within 200 miles of Fayetteville and 10% traveling from further away. Approximately 18% of our attendees spent at least one night in a hotel in Fayetteville. In 2021, the company itself invested $80,000 in the county between contracts with the Crown Expo Center, over 200 purchased nights at hotels for our staff, volunteers, and guests, and direct costs at other things like local eateries. We have held fundraisers for the Fayetteville Animal Protection Society, the American Red Cross after Hurricanes Matthew and Florence, as well as other local charities. We have partnered with the Fayetteville Woodpeckers and the Fayetteville Marksmen, supported Fourth Fridays and the inaugural Nerd Market with the Cool Springs Downtown District, and are members of the Greater Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. As we look towards 2022, we hope we can work closer with the city of Fayetteville and Cumberland County to promote our event and the amazing businesses, be they restaurants, hotels, comic shops, bookstores, movie theaters, museums, antique shops, or other offerings within Cumberland County. I personally invite everyone here to visit the Crown Expo Center for our next show, April 23rd and 24th. To succeed, we hope to partner with the community on all advances and all opportunities that we can. And Fayetteville Comic-Con, if it's geek, we got it.
Thanks. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Madam Clerk.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Bobby Fernandez was in the back room and did not hear the name. Would you be willing to call Bobby
absolutely.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Bobby Fernandez?
Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bobby Fernandez, and my daughter is going to read what, we come to speak on. I am reading this on the behalf of my mother. On the morning of August the 25th, 2019, my son Roberto Lopez was the victim of a homicide. It happened around 7:13 a.m., and they put him on the ambulance at 7:39 a.m., and he was pronounced dead on arrival at 7:50 a.m. The reason I am here today is to ask what were the rules were they supposed to go by when my child was pronounced dead. What was the steps they were supposed to follow to ensure that the family was notified the correct way? What was the protocol? Why wasn't the next of kin notified? The only way we were notified were from my daughter in New York. The way she found out was from a suspect who was there, who had called her after hours later. They went off of who the suspect said he was, and they never informed us he was dead. We never got a proper visit or call from the law enforcement nor medical examiner stating my son was dead. We didn't get to go in and identify his body. So we were basically going off he say because we didn't even know if it was him because we weren't allowed to properly identify his body. They didn't give us a chance. We didn't get to see his body until 4 days after. My son should have been identified by me, his mother. He wasn't married, so I am next to kin. In the result of all this, all that has happened, I established a petition called the Roberto Law. The petition currently has about 21,000 signatures at the moment. I'm not sure if there is already a law to notify next to kin. If so, the rules were not properly done in my son's case. If so, I am asking for the law to be reinforced in my son's name.
Yes, my son was murdered. I never ever got the proper someone to call me to let me know my son was dead and in the morgue. It was Sunday morning. I didn't get to see my son until that Thursday, and at the funeral home, I never got identified my baby. He was not married. I don't know what the protocol was. I never got a phone call even from the hospital to let me know he was in the morgue, dead. And I'm had this petition out. August will be, please Lord forgive me, January will be 2 years. I'm headed out. I've got 20,000 signatures, and like I stated, it is a law. I would like the law to be reinforced in my son's name. I just wanted to come here. It took me 2 years to come so people will know my story, so nobody else will have to go through what I've experienced. My son did not have a criminal background. He was an honest guy. He did not steal, rob, steal, or kill. He worked every day of his life, and that somebody treated him like a dog. Took him in the morgue. I didn't get far to identify my baby. And I wanted more to know my story, to know what happened to my baby. I've been trying to do it 2 years by myself, but I need help. I need somebody to hear my story. Thank you for everything.
Madam Clerk.
Our last speaker this evening is Michael Boos.
I think I saw the other two speakers come in.
She was back in the back, too, Kathy Griggs.
I think they all were
And then
notified.
there's one back in the back, too.
All right, then we will take Kathy Greggs.
Good evening.
Good evening.
That was very heartfelt. And
Was.
it's also something heartfelt that tonight that the temperature goes below 33 degrees and we are in the frost advisory and we have people that's sleeping out there right now. We were told, my name is Kathy Greggs. My address is 4607 Woodline Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28314. Retired Army and also the president and the co-founder of Fayetteville Police Accountability Community Task Force. Tonight I'm discussing the fact that we have people that are homeless, sleeping right now. And I was given, back in February, an email from Commissioner Glenn Adams stating that $3.8 million would be used for the white flag. We are still looking for what is the actual approach for the white flag, especially since tonight is the frost advisory. We also looking at the American Rescue Plan funds, which we did know that it was going to be allocated to housing, mental health, as well as homelessness and other entities. Tonight, I just came to discuss the fact that we are, as a group, here, different organizations in Fayetteville, as well as global. It's called globalsleepout.com, and we will be sleeping once again in Festival Park with the homeless. That will happen on Thursday night, and we challenge our elected officials to come out as well, and that is from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., and that is a global national sleep out. With this funding, we will give this money to all COVID families that are hurting because they're not receiving funding from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker would be Carla Acaza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carla Ekaza. My address is 3221 Melba Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28301. I come here today not just as a veteran, not just as a mental health care provider, but I come here as just a human being, a person that has seen suffering. I've worked at the VA. I'm an Army veteran myself. I've worked at the VA with suicide prevention, and I am now a qualified professional supervisor for peer support with Renew Counseling Center here. The only mental health and substance abuse providers that cater to the Latino and the low-income community, because there's no other place here in Cumberland County that has Spanish-speaking providers, that has services that provide mental health and substance abuse care for people that have no insurance. We see patients for free. And it's my understanding that the monies that go to mental health are supposed to be going also to nonprofits, I believe. I may be wrong about that, but I was looking into the budget that you guys had set for 2022, and there's something in there about monies that are supposed to go to nonprofits that do this. Well, we need that money. Right now, we have people, I just had 2 crises this week. I had to go to the developmental center of Cumberland County to try to put up someone that was in the street in the rain, sleeping in the woods, okay, to have them put them into a hotel while we find a program, a rehab program. We need a rehab program here in Cumberland County, okay? I've called, I don't even know how many programs I've called this week, and they don't have openings or beds till December, and it's cold out there. So while we're at night sleeping under our nice and warm blankets, we got people sleeping in their cars. We got people sleeping in the woods. We got people that need Suboxone. We got people that need in-house treatment for drug addiction. The opioid crisis here is incredible. I've never seen anything like it, especially with our veterans. I don't even know what else to say other than we need to do something. And I ask for transparency. You guys, we elected you guys. I voted for some of you. We elected you guys, and I expect transparency. I want to know what is happening with that money. We, the people that you serve in this community, we should know where that money is going. And we need your help. Those people that are out there, those clients that I talk to every day on the phone crying, because unfortunately, I can't bring them to my house. I can't bring everybody home and give them a roof. But we need to do something with those monies, and I want to know why. I want to know where that money is going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who let me know the speakers were in the back. Our last speaker this evening is Michael Boos.
Good evening. Michael
Welcome,
Boos,
sir.
309 Farley, Fayetteville, 28303. My message is to y'all. Y'all don't get enough attaboys. I've been on a lot of different boards, commissions, and stuff like a lot of you have, and getting stuff done is very, very difficult. It seems like that everybody always has, in fact, our last 2 speakers, homelessness, everybody always has great intentions, it's actually putting the train on the tracks and actually getting it moving seems to be difficult. I'm very proud of this crowd this year. We haven't always agreed. In fact, we've agreed a lot more than I thought we would, and I just want to say I'm proud of being a member of this board, and if you aren't, in our worst moment, I want you to go home and watch some of the replays. I'm not going to mention any names of some of the other elected officials around here. And you'll look around and you'll want to give the people on your right and left a hug for not getting to that level. We're here to do the county's business, and y'all are doing a great job.
There are no further speakers this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item number 1, approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve. Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion? Commissioner Council.
I can't find my button. I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you so much. Is there a second? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. This brings us to item number 2 under presentations. This evening, we're going to have an update on the Partnership for Children by Mrs. Mary Sonnenberg, who serves as the president of that organization. Welcome, Mary.
Welcome, Ms. Sonnenberg.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So that'll move it forward? Okay, all right. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. We want to give you an update and some of our challenges in these very trying times. The partnership opened its doors almost 30 years ago. Many of you were around then and supported the partnership. And our core vision is to provide early childhood education and resources for the children and families in this community. Smart Start started out with the intent, and Cumberland County was one of the first pilots, in the first 12 pilots, to provide about 25% of need in communities, and then to leverage other federal funds, local funds, and private funds. Currently, we get about 17% of our funding from the state for Smart Start. And NC Pre-K, which was more at 4, is funded at about 61% of what it costs for that program. You can see from this slide that funding for Smart Start accelerated pretty significantly in the early years and then it had pretty significant cuts in 2011 and it's been flat ever since. What we want to talk about is Smart Start's intent to be collaborators in the community and to leverage the resources that are here and to try to meet the needs. And we do that through a variety of collaborations. We're active in Pathways for Prosperity as the preschool birth to 5 leader for that task force. We serve on many city and county boards. We're on the Food Policy Council. We have members of our staff on United Way. We work with the Child Abuse and Prevention Plan, the first in the state, which we've brought to you in the past. We work with Action Pathways. What I'd like to say is that 79% of birth to 5-year-olds received at least one service that would have been challenged and taken through our processes through developmental screenings, DSS subsidy, work with Fayetteville State and Fayetteville Tech, Reach Out and Read, and the Health Department. Since 1993, over $300 million from the state of North Carolina through federal and state dollars have come into Cumberland County. And since 2001, we've served over 17,000 children in NC Pre-K. We currently have a budget of about $10 million for that. The needs are great in Cumberland County. You've heard some of those already today. We have a high birth rate. We actually have more children born in Cumberland County than many other parts of the state, which is a good thing. We're going to talk about babies in a minute. We have high rates of child abuse and neglect, and we know that, and we know we need to do something about it. Our reimbursement rates for services for early education are not aligned across the board. You can receive one amount of money from subsidy and less money for NC Pre-K, which is a program that takes higher qualifications. And we have a family resource center that serves children and families of all ages, not just our birth to 5 population. So I'm going to talk about a few of our current priorities, the first of which is Family Connects. We've talked to you about that before. That's universal newborn home visiting. And through some funding through the Community Foundation, we started that program a couple of years ago, and we are now the recipients of the Preschool Development Grant through the state to do a regional pilot covering Cumberland, Hoke, and Robeson County with births at Cape Fear. And I am thrilled to report that since October 4th, when we launched recruitment at Cape Fear, 440 babies have been born. 55 of those were outside of the catchment area that we're covering right now. We are giving them some resources, but not home visits. And of those 385, only 56 families have declined home visits. That's only 14%. 170 babies have been scheduled for home visits, and another 109 are in process. It's a great launch for a program that could change the trajectory for the children in this county and reduce child abuse and neglect and emergency room visits. So we're really excited about that. Some of our challenges have been exacerbated by the pandemic and some of our storms in the last few years with hurricanes. We own the Family Resource Center, for those of you who know that. We have 43,000 square feet and 23 partners that serve like-minded missions of serving families. We have family counseling, we have services for children on the autism spectrum, speech therapy, and a number of other services available. Our building is not in very good shape right now. You can see this is the first phase of building renovations. The windows are very vulnerable to leaking and have been for years. Those 2 storms really exacerbated it. We're working with Steve Fleming. For the first phase, we had grant funding to cover that. The total cost of that expense is about $1.2 million. So we will be trying to raise more money and looking for any grants and other things. Capital money is hard to come by. But we are determined to make sure that that facility continues to be stable and sustainable to provide the services in this community. And then we come to NC Pre-K, which is only one of our early childhood programs, but it is the 4-year program, 4-year-old program. We know that we need to start from birth. That's what Family Connects is helping us do. But NC Pre-K serves over 1,500 children a year in a non-pandemic year. Okay, our enrollment has been down. NC Pre-K has faced the same challenges as all of our child cares with keeping qualified staff and enrollment going. And we know that it's an economic engine for children to have qualified child care and so parents can go to work. So what we are looking at right now is that we have 53 programs. We know that if a program is well-funded, that those children don't need special ed, a third less than other children in other counties, and they have less grade retention and higher reading and math scores that actually hold beyond 3rd grade. And so NC Pre-K is a successful program, but it is underfunded. The state pays $6,500 a year for each child in a private site. That same site could get regular child care subsidy from DSS for a 5-star center of $7,900. So there's the discrepancy in alignment and the real need for closing that gap so we can sustain that program. And we fund public school NC Pre-K classrooms and Head Start, and we do not fund them at the highest rate that we could fund them. So we need additional dollars to do that, and we need this to be a long-term solution of blending funds to do that. And so it's really imperative to look at that workforce compensation, and I bring that just to your attention, knowing how critical childcare is, in particular NC Pre-K. I do know that in the interim, there is some ARP money that could be used that way. We are looking at all revenue sources. We are using some of our Smart Start money to support NC Pre-K. So we do know that we need to continue working on that program, not just for NC Pre-K, but for the child care workforce as well. If we don't have qualified child care, people aren't going to be able to go to work. And for our Family Resource Center, we do have 20 agencies operating dozens of programs. Pre-pandemic, over 17,000 people walk through our doors every year. And so we collaborate there in order to leverage what we do in the community. So I just wanted to update you on our challenges, some of our needs, and some of our successes with Family Connects. Right now, the pilot is covering the initial cost for that. We hope that it will show that the state should scale Family Connects across the entire state and expand our region. But alone in Cumberland County to do Family Connects, it would be $3 million a year. We can bill Medicaid for some of that, and we're actually starting to look at that. So again, it's leveraging whatever resources are out there. So we wanted the opportunity to update you on what we're doing for early childhood. I firmly believe, and I've been doing this for over 40 years, that if we get it right in the first 5 years, we can ameliorate and at least mitigate some of the issues in our community. And we're here to do that for this community. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We did provide you with more detail on all of these factors and your handouts that you got in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Booth.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and I love the format you gave us the information on. You gave us the outline on top and then reference material for each one if you want to know right then or go back later or whatever. So that was very helpful. My question is can you pull your slide up on the funding that dropped off in, was it 11?
Yeah.
Did they, by they, I mean funding sources.
That's state funding.
Okay, did they eliminate an age or a
They
program?
just dropped the money and we all had to make cuts.
Just,
Well, what happened, and I was actually out of state during that time, but what happened, I moved out of state for 7 years and came back. North Carolina has some great early childhood work. So what happened was, I think there was a lot of conversation then about the state operation of Smart Start as well as More at 4. And a lot of things changed. At that time, you could get subsidy for any star level program, and now you can only get subsidized care for 3, 4, and 5. So they wanted more references. And at the same time, More at 4, which changed to NC Pre-K, was also ramping up. So some of the money, may have been spread out to More at 4 as well. But it was a pretty significant cut, and that meant that we've been.
It didn't keep doing this, and it wasn't a spike where it came back up. So that's why I thought maybe the 3, 4, 5 program, they just said we can do 5 and 4, but 3 is going to have to drop out for a while or something.
But we do focus, Smart Start does focus on 4 and 5.
Okay.
That is the goal. Any of our subsidy dollars that we fund DSS with, as well as what we do in-house, has to go to 4 and 5 Star Center, and DSS can fund 3, 4, and 5. So there were absolutely those types of changes in order for us to do that work. So I haven't totally read the 700 page state budget, but we are cautiously optimistic that there may be some new funding for Smart Start. But until we read all the fine print, we don't know exactly whether it's recurring or non-recurring. But early childhood is premier on everybody's minds because we know what a difference it will make. I mean, we need to support all of our children for good outcomes, but again, those first 5 years are critical.
Are there any other questions or comments? Sonnenberg, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item number 3, your consent agenda.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us, Mr. Chairman, to our contested zoning cases this evening. And if I may, before we get started and before you open the public hearing, I'd like to read the board's zoning hearing time limit policy, please.
Okay.
Arguments by the proponents and opponents shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes for each side. If there is no group representative, each speaker shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes until the 10-minute time limit is attained. Rebuttals will only be permitted at the discretion of the chairman with a maximum of 1 3-minute presentation by each side. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And our first case this evening is case zoning 21004. Mr. Howard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Canning. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So this item that I have before you, along with the item that you're going to see just after this, are a couple of text amendments that staff has been working with the Planning Board on over the last couple of months. Essentially, I don't have a formal presentation for this one because I feel it's just fairly basic. So this particular text amendment is to insert some language into our sort of general government section of the zoning ordinance about how we handle and process applications that basically just say that we have the ability to schedule a pre-application meeting with the applicant. Before I get too much further into this as well too, and I apologize for this, The packet, it's my understanding, was probably not clear, so at the direction of the county attorney, I had put standalone slides of paper at your dais for this that reflects the language of the county attorney who is reviewed and approved the language that you see before you this evening. So that language is also in your packet, so it's nothing new. I just wanted to make sure that you were staring at the thing that we're actually going to be talking about this evening for your quick reference, okay? So this particular language to start off with for the pre-application meeting is, for all intents and purposes, is just telling people, come talk to us. So what we run into is we have a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, but I would say it's a solid minority of folks who do business that we will have applications dropped off on the deadline day, and we really haven't had a lot of opportunity to be able to talk to applicants about, is this the right zoning that you want to go for? Are you sure this is what you want to do? Or maybe we can suggest an alternative that would be better received. So this language is pretty standard language that you see in a lot of zoning ordinances throughout through a lot of counties and towns. What this does is allow staff to be able to write internal protocols as to what kind of gravity of cases that we really need to have people come in and say, time out, we need to sit down with you to go over what your application states. What we're hoping is that it's going to cut down on the amount of cases that go to the planning board and to the Board of Commissioners where we say, that you really need to go back to the planning board and talk about this, or if you're the planning board, that you really need to go back to staff and work this out and come back with maybe a conditional zoning case or something different. So, again, we work with the planning board on this, and I do want to acknowledge that we do have the planning board chairman, Mr. Stan Crumpler, back here as well, too, so if you have questions as well. We think it's fairly a sensible amendment to our code, and it did pass the planning board by a unanimous decision. So if you have any questions, it's pretty straightforward. I don't have too much to add to it then.
Commissioner Adams.
I don't have a question. I do have a comment, though. And I read this, and I did call the county attorney earlier today. And the planning board wants to be a text amendment. And I think that to require people to come in, if I want to drop off my packet, I drop off my packet. If it's not right, it's not right. Then that's your job to tell me I didn't do it right. So I think this ought to be policy of the planning board, but not a text amendment. Especially, I think somewhere in there it said it could also be waived by.
That was the older language. The newer language was, yes, I would just.
It's out of this one, you're saying?
No.
Because it was in the one that I read on.
That was the language that the planning board approved, and I believe from last month you asked the county attorney to review it, and that language was removed.
But I think for this board, it just adds another step, a legal step that just causes a whole lot of confusion. I think that if that wants to be the policy, that it's an option for anybody who wants to come in and have that meeting that they can, but to require people to do that, I think it's a little much. So I would not be in favor of this text amendment, but I would be as a policy.
Are there any other comments or questions?
And you can ask
Commissioner Keith.
Mr. Chair, could I ask Mr. Crumpler to come up? Mr. Crumpler?
Where's that item?
Hey, Mr. Crumpler, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Always being on an advisory board is difficult, but we have seen a lot of separation between staff and the planning board on a number of issues. Recently, in the last 4 months, quite a few of them. Is there anything that we can help make that a little bit easier? I mean, what's happening?
I think what we're sending to you now will help with this. Not to be in deference to Mr. Adams, but I think we want to stop some of the confusion. We want to save time when it comes to us, and then we see it in our debate for the particular item, that we have to send it back to get it redone. If we can talk to the parties involved before it gets to our debating sessions, then I think this will probably clear up some of the things that you see.
Well, it's to the parties involved's best interest to make sure that everybody knows, but we've had a number of, I think some of the problems we have is the wording in our ordinances. I mean, zero lot lines in rural communities, it just doesn't work. And a number of times the staff has recommended, but the planning board has taken it down. You know, I see, you know, zoning continue to go on commercial areas that have no sewer, but it's in some plan that we keep going with. So, I mean, I'm not so sure whenever it comes up to the commissioners, we expect there to be due diligence on there, and a lot of times we see changes even after you've heard it. We've had a number of times that someone will come to us with changes to where and we don't want to send it back to you, but sometimes that's what the requirement is.
When we meet on these, we try to clarify it before we send it to you. So we have sent several things back to staff to look at these again. Zero lot line is probably a hot topic item. If you bring anybody in here for your cases that you hear, I don't think it's a happy word for people.
I agree.
There's several things that can be included in zero lot line that would not be a good topic for most people that won't in rural areas, and most of the county is pretty rural. There are good things that can happen from zero lot line that you can do with it, and there are cases when you need to use that to be able to get the utmost on the development of the piece of property. But as a rule, when we have someone coming to us on a conditional zoning or a zero lot line, then we're seeing a lot of people from the neighborhood showing up because they just don't like it, because it's not a happy word to them.
Well, you can understand it if you lived out there, because it is a fearful word. It certainly, and maybe that ordinance needs to be changed with some sort of additional type of zoning that goes into a rural environment.
I think we're looking at that now. That's in the works for what we're doing to change some of those things in there. You know, the we the people thing is a pretty strong statement, and we get a lot of the we the people showing up when they don't like what's happening in their community, and I don't blame them. That's their right, and I think they should come to it and they should be heard. And we try to hear everyone, but zero lot line and some of the things are not things that come to us that we really like to look at to take away possibility, things that the developer can do, but we also don't want to put something into a community that the people that are living in the community want.
Sure.
So that's the reason that the staff is looking at new things in there to change some of the things on zero lot line. We're putting some possibilities of changing the status on the zero lot line and the set-asides. So that is in the works. We're working on that, but right now we haven't come to the conclusion on that.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming up, and I appreciate it. I know it's not an easy job what you're doing, because, you know, people's homes are personal.
Well, they are, and I think that they should be heard and they should be able to control their communities.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Crumpler. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's part of the updated language per legal thing, so it's not really what we're discussing right now, but it seems like we're going to that. Some of the people we've seen come up here are not going to be able to form a website that allows written response from their neighbors. And we've also talked about, if you're doing 10 acres or more, if you're doing 40 acres, if you did 600 feet from the center of it, you just have to tell yourself. I mean, so is it 600 feet from every border?
Yes.
You know, well,
It's from the edge of the property. I mean, I think that's probably the next amendment, unless you want to talk about both of them at the same time.
No,
I'm not happy with sending people out on this next one. The reason I went next door to talk to my neighbor about selling my property and got put in the hospital is because the county made me. You know, they must go out and conduct neighborhood chats.
I'm with you on that.
I'm not sending anybody.
Commissioner Adams.
Mr. Chairman, if nobody else has a comment, I'd make a motion that as to case.
Before you make that motion, sir.
You got to open the public hearing.
First, I would like to hear from the attorney.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll tell you that.
And I'll just restrict it to the one at a time, so there won't be
Right, the first.
confusion. But with respect to the proposed section 112 pre-application conference, which is a an addition. It's a totally new addition to the proposed addition to the zoning ordinance. I rewrote this language because the first language really had some things in it that I had some serious problems with. But I rewrote this to accommodate Rawls' very passionate interest in doing this and thinking it'd be beneficial to him. Frankly, I'm not a fan of putting stuff in ordinances that don't have to be in ordinances just to sort of have it in an ordinance, because, I mean, this is something that can be done, as Commissioner Adams said, even without a policy, but with a formal policy to give it some background. In fact, my advice to Mr. Rawls on this, to Mr. Howard on this, was to do this as a recommendation to either do an ordinance or have an internal policy put together by himself for staff. Because you can always talk to developers or people making applications about any of this stuff if you let them know that it's available, and I think that goes on. But in terms of the impact of this, it doesn't really, you're just telling people, you can talk to us about an application.
Yeah.
So that's, and I think one issue with putting stuff like this in ordinances is that it also creates another thing that if you get sued, they're gonna bring that with it. You know, you did this guy, but you didn't do this applicant, and you didn't the same way. So there's always those sort of issues too. But I think what Mr. Rawls, Mr. Howard, it's a good idea to have these discussions with applicants and stuff. But my advice, recommendation would be that it be done as a policy in the sense of at least to see how it can be developed.
Okay, and Mr. Attorney, while we have you on the floor, will we move forward with the public hearing on this?
Yes, sir, unless anyone has any
I'm
further.
sorry. I was moving on.
Fantastic. Open the public hearing.
There are no speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or discussions? If not, let's have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion that we send this back to the planning board and the staff, and that they do it as an internal policy and not as a text amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Commissioner Booth. All in favor? All opposed? Oh, I'm sorry.
Voting in favor, Commissioners Council, Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioners Adams, Booth, and Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Lancaster.
Thank you, Board. Yes, sir.
All right, so, next item. So, keeping it in the same vein is trying to get up front and have more conversations on the front end. Staff had been working on a text amendment with the planning board again that's reflective of what you see in a lot of, again, zoning ordinances in counties and towns throughout the state. So this particular text amendment is a neighbor communication summary that would apply for certain types of conditional zonings, which I'll go into here in just a second. So again, why are we doing this? So there's a response to the increase of growth in residential development that we're continuing to see in Cumberland County. We're seeing a lot of single-family homes coming our way. Again, we want to try to reduce the number of cases that are remanded back for review by again trying to have more of these front-end conversations, and to identify maybe better or more appropriate or possible alternate courses of action for applicants as they're going through the process, and as a result of this. So, for this particular text amendment, staff is proposing that this only applied to conditional rezonings only. If you look at ordinances throughout the state, a lot of ordinances require public meetings for conditional zonings, period. We didn't want to go that far out as far as applying it to every single type of conditional rezoning that we receive. But what it does apply is to any agricultural or residential district that's over 10 acres and proposes an increase of density, or somebody who's doing a zero lot line subdivision, which is where we're seeing a lot of the growth and activity today. So some of the standards that we're looking at is that the applicant has to put out some notices within 600 feet of the property. Now, going back to Mr. Booth's comment, that is 600 feet from the edge of the property. That's not the center, so it's 600 feet around. It just allows comments to be made on on that particular type of development in a range of formats. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a public meeting where it's scheduled to decide. It can be mailings, it can be email, regular mail, in person. I mean, so there's a lot of different formats and platforms that you can operate from for that, and we actually contemplate that in our ordinance. And then 2 days before the planning board meeting, the applicant just has to submit that report to us, and then we include that to the planning board as a part of their packet so they can see what type of communications took place. So at the time of application, that applicant can be able to apply and then start their meeting processes as they're going up to the planning board meeting. And then 2 days before that they would submit the report, we put it and give it to the planning board at the meeting, and then it's included in the packets when it comes up to you guys, and you guys can be able to see it as well. So some of the items that we tried to address with this ordinance amendment is how and when the notification occurred and who was notified, how the information was shared with the neighbors, who was involved, suggestions and concerns that are raised by the neighbors, and then what specific changes, if any, the applicant made to address any of the things that were brought up as a part of his dialogue with the surrounding neighbors. And so that's about it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer what I can.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Madam Clerk. Over the public hearing, Madam Clerk.
There are no speakers.
Thank you. Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or discussions? Commissioner Booth.
Thanks for clarifying that. So then we can pencil in on that second paragraph, to comply with the neighborhood communications requirement, the applicant must notice the regular mail, by regular mail, the owner of each property located within 600 feet of the perimeter of the property? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And I know you see more of them than we do, because a lot of times they end on either approved by the planning board and we never see them, or they've done a resolution or a compromise on it. It seems that the ones that come here, the neighbors are all going to know. It's either the Smith family with 100 acres, mm-hmm. and the patriarchs of the family are now deceased, and the kids have moved to Charlotte or something, mm-hmm. and so the kids just put the land up for sale. So the neighbors already know what's going on that one, and from Charlotte, having a meeting or documenting that you had communication with your neighbors around there, I don't think that the law requires that. I think the notice is there, but out of town, out of state owners and stuff trying to get things done down here, having to come down and walk around the neighborhood and talk to people, or it's folks where a spouse has died and they're going to move in with a child, or retire or do something like that, and that's what they can do. But that's I don't see forcing people to go around and chat with their neighbors. I think it's dangerous to make them go up to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm selling my farm next to you," and the guy say, "You told me you'd never sell." I've had plenty of offers. In fact, the people that are buying your place offered me, and you told me not to take it. They're in the front yard wrestling, and when the police break it up, they say, "I wouldn't have come by here. I didn't know what he was going to think about it, but the county said I had to come by." So that's my concern is, I'm not trying to mix up folks that already know and make them get face to face with each other. I think that if you can document they had the notice, then that's what the state law requires.
Are there any more questions or comments?
I got a question, because when I read it,
Commissioner Adams.
what happens if we don't do it? I mean, it doesn't tell anybody what the ramifications are. Unless I just missed it.
There's nothing specifically in here, but the general ordinance requirements would apply to it. It would be a violation of the ordinance not to do it.
Yeah. I mean, like the way that staff would treat that is that it would be an incomplete application if somebody didn't submit it 2 days, so then we would postpone it.
So then I guess the question I have, which is always has been my question, it says we, as the planning board, as we've been doing these zoning cases, we put a little bitty sign out there. We're actually asking these people to do more almost than what y'all do. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that I'm going to ask this applicant to do more. I told somebody, was it 1,000 feet is what you got to notify? I can walk out my front door, walk to the end of my street, mm-hmm. All right, and I'm more than 1,000 feet away, but I could do a rezoning at my house and those neighbors not even noticed. And now you're asking these people, we're going to ask these people to go out and make communications with all of these other folk. We're asking them in terms of cost, time, expense to do more than what we are required in statute to do. I just, for the board, I just don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. It's just another layer of expense for applicant, and I think that's what we got the planning board for, that's what we got the hearing for, that's what we got the staff for. I do think we need to go back and look at, I know what the statute says in terms of the 1,000 feet. We can do better than that. I think we can locally, I would ask you to go back instead of doing this and putting it on them, is for us to start giving a little bit more notice to all of the areas that is doing, even a bigger sign. You can't even read what's on the, when we see them, you can't even read what's on that little sign. And so to go to this, requiring more of people than what we do is just not right. It's just not right. I'm sorry, Boo.
Are there any more questions or comments? Can I entertain a motion?
I would move to deny this text amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Council, Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioners Adams, Booth, and Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Lancaster.
Mr. Chairman, the next
ma'am.
case is case P21-33.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. So this case, as you can see here, is located in the Grays Creek area of the county, as indicated by the star, just east of Hope Mills, south of Fayetteville. I won't read all the names, but you can see all the owners that are associated with this particular property. It's quite a big list. You have Hubbard, Lassiter, I'll just mention some of the lad names, Woodell, and Domansky, from what I can see. Hope I'm not leaving anybody out. But the request is to go from A1 Agricultural District to R15 Conditional Zoning District. If you recall, this case was on your docket probably about 2 months ago. And the applicant, at that particular time, the request was R7.5 with a 122-lot subdivision that was proposed as a part of the request. The applicant voluntarily pulled that back and wanted to go back to the planning board and staff to talk about his case. So we took that back through the process again, and it's now been resubmitted as an R15 conditional district with a 104 lot. So the lot count has been reduced, and then the R district had been increased from 7.5 to R15. So the acreage, as you can see here, is about 40, just a little under 42 acres. You can see the property. Let's see if I can use my, you can see up here. So you can see the property that's been crosshatched here. So just to give you a little bit of bearing of where this is Tom Starling Road that sits up here. This is 87. Two major corridors, but you can see where this sits in relation to Smith Road down here to the south, and it sits just on the west side of NC 87. So primarily in this area, you can see for this particular area is you got some single family and manufactured homes, but for the most part, you've got a real mix of a lot of developed and then some farms out here. So it's a changing dynamic of an area within our county. There's no doubt about that. The zoning you can see here is primarily A1. So you can see A1 all around it. As you go down here to Smith Road, you're seeing some commercial nodes that start to develop over a period of time, which is not uncommon where you have commercial development at intersections. I wanted to take a step back because we're getting a lot of cases out in this area, just to give you guys a big picture look at what we're dealing with here as far as this type of development. So just to look here, you can see the regional pattern of development of growth. You can see the lot that's been outlined here, but what we wanted to point out with staff is you can see Sand Hill Road that's right here. Primarily, I want you to think in the aggregate or the macro here. You can see a lot of the subdivision activity that is happening off Sand Hill Road in the southern part, and likewise when you go to Tom Starling up here to the north, you can see a pretty significant amount of subdivision development that's happening up here. So this property is kind of sandwiched in between an area that is apparently has a lot of demand for residential growth. So there is water and sewer out for this property. This is PWC, so you can see the two lines. I know it's kind of hard to tell the colors, but they are there. So you have the, it's got sewer and water capacity for this particular site. When we looked at the plan for this area, so I want you guys to think about the big aggregate I just showed you just a minute ago, where you saw basically the west side of 87. The west side of 87 for the plan does contemplate a low density designation for residential. with a density of anywhere between 2.2 and 6 units per acre. This particular development is coming in at about 2.89 units per acre, so staff felt it was definitely compliant with our plans. This is the revised plan that that the applicant had submitted back. Again, he reduced it from 122 down to 104, so this is the plan you see here. There's open space that's contemplated in the subdivision with neighborhood connections to vacant parcels should the parcels to the north or to the west grow or develop, that there are stub connections that would then handle the traffic circulation associated with the growth that would be coming. If you don't mind, I'm going to take this off. I'm getting a mask on with my mouth. So, standing on 87, this is the subject property that you can see here, again, wooded. This is looking north on 87 with the property on the other side of the road. This is the east view as you're standing on the property looking across 87. And this is the south view of 87 with the property immediately on the right. And of course, you can see the rezoning sign by statute that we post for the property. So staff had recommended approval of the request, and then the planning board, through a split vote of 4-3, had recommended denial of the request. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer what I can, and I do believe the applicant is here to answer any questions as well.
No, you can.
Okay, let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
This evening,
You've already read these things.
This evening, we have 3 speakers in favor of and 5 speakers in opposition to the rezoning. Our first speaker in favor is Donald Curry.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Don Curry with Curry Engineering, 205 South Fuquay Avenue in Fuquay Varina. I would like to defer my time to Mr. Charleston, who's going to be presenting on behalf of the applicant, and I'm here for any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, he wants to defer. Can he defer his time? Will the board allow Mr. Curry to defer his time to Mr. Charleston?
Okay.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, that's always been the policy. What, you can't be yelling at.
It's fine. It's fine.
Our next speaker is Michael Caney.
Good evening, board. My name is Michael Caney, 1820 French Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27612, and I also will be deferring my time to Mr. Charleston. Thank you. Be here on behalf of the applicant with any questions.
Is it the board's continued policy to allow that transfer his time also to Attorney Charleston?
You got 9 minutes.
It just be 9 minutes the same.
Yes.
All right, that would allow Mr. Charleston 9 minutes in which to speak. Mr. Charleston.
How did I lose a minute?
It took you a minute to get to the podium.
Okay, all right. Well, all right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Charleston, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners of the subject property as well as the applicants. And I appreciate this opportunity to present the applicant's request. One of the things that I think is important, and I had scratched it out to try to reserve my time, is to point out that the area that's in question has, over a long period of time, been rural. But as you know, North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country. And Cumberland County is the 5th largest metropolitan area in the state. Of the 5 metropolitan areas in the state, Cumberland County has had the lowest growth. Raleigh is 28% growth in 10 years. Charlotte's 21% growth in 10 years. Guilford is about 11. Forsyth is 9. Cumberland County is about 4%. Now, the fact of the matter is the area that we're dealing with right now is a high-growth area on Highway 87, sandwiched between two areas where they're having a lot of subdivision growth that the county has approved. And I'd like to say that the point is that the property owners, and they're here tonight, Mr. Woodard, and there they are, you all raise your hand, they like to do like everybody else, and that is to have the highest and best use of their property. I mean, every one of us wants to have the highest and best use of our property. And these folks have not, they didn't just acquire this property, ladies and gentlemen. They've had this property forever. It's come through their family. So tonight, these property owners are requesting that the commissioners rezone the property from A1 agricultural to R15 residential district conditional zoning. And that's consistent with the South Central land use plan that calls for urban development in that area. As the gentleman from the planning department pointed out a little bit earlier, the applicant originally asked to have 122 lots. They reduced it to 104 lots. They met with the neighbors, they talked with the neighbors, they listened to what the neighbors had to say. Now, what I will say is that this property is being developed with low density, just as your land use plan called for. That is your guidepost. That's what everybody looks to when they decide to do development. So I would urge you to consider following that guide that was adopted by this body in 2015, the South Central Land Use Plan. This proposal is consistent with that, squarely with the land use plan designation of low-density residential. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest, as the district designation requested will ensure a subdivision plan with recommended conditions. I will point out that this land is not located in a watershed area, is not located within a special flood hazard area, which is defined by FEMA as land in the floodplain subject to a 1% or greater chance of being flooded in any given year. It's not in a floodplain. There's no evidence of hydric inclusion soils on the site. There's no competent evidence that the site will have any impact on the transportation improvement plan or any traffic patterns. The owner has voluntarily set forth conditions that are set forth in your materials. I will highlight just a few. All construction-related traffic is prohibited from Ola Burns Drive for the duration of the subdivision and home construction. The developer will provide up to 3 inches of stone resurfacing of Ola Burns Drive. The developer will provide supplemental plantings in terms of a 20-foot wide perimeter buffer for screening for the community. There's an anti-monotony requirement that says that no unit shall be constructed with an exterior elevation or color palette that's identical to the unit on either side. Stormwater control measures, this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, will be designed such that the post-development runoff rates will not exceed that of pre-development rates for the 2, 10, 25, and 50-year storm events. What I'm simply saying, folks, is that this property, from a stormwater perspective, is being developed at the highest urban standards. And so, to the extent that it's being built to a 50-year storm event, that means that if there is a 50-year storm event, any areas around there were going to flood anyways, notwithstanding any development there. And that's what Diener says, that's what all the development standards say. As to traffic, you know, the DOT standards show that there will be minimum impact on this, based on this development. So again, the proposed development is consistent with your growth strategy map. The urban growth strategy area is defined as areas designated for immediate urban development. This area fits neatly within that. I might also say, as to the traffic volumes, which is important, because we've heard from the neighbors in that area, I will say simply that North Carolina DOT interactive traffic map shows the total annual average daily traffic on Highway 87, 18,000 vehicles today. If we utilize the tables in the 9th edition of the trip generation manual, 104 single-family homes generate a daily traffic volume of only 990 trips per day. Does not create any thresholds or violate any thresholds in terms of North Carolina DOT. As I stated earlier, in order to help mitigate the impacts of stormwater runoff to the downstream property owners, specifically downstream of Highway 87, this project is providing a committed condition, this was voluntary, that far exceeds the requirements of the county. These are the standards that this Board of Commissioners and its planning staff have established. Cumberland County's post-construction stormwater management program is administered by DENR, and DENR requires treatment of the first inch of runoff from storm events with no requirement on stormwater retention. In this case, again, the development is being built to a 50-year standard, 50-year standard. So if there's a 50-year storm, whether that development is there or not, there's going to be flooding. Everybody knows that. And so what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is that the most fundamental and treasured principle in our land is that property owners should be allowed to develop their property to its highest and best use, provided that the proposed use does not have a substantial adverse effect on surrounding property owners. And I would also say that when a property owner desires to develop their property to the highest and best use, they should not be asked to shoulder the burden of everybody else by saying that, you know, let our property stay the way it is, but, you know, you can't develop yours because we want to keep ours the way it is. I will simply say on behalf of the owners of the subject property and the applicant, we respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners grant this request. Is consistent with all of the planning guides and that have been adopted by this board. Is consistent with the DENR requirements. Stormwater is not an issue. Traffic is not an issue. And I'll pause here. I got 20 seconds to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
We have 5 speakers in opposition.
Okay, no questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Probably later on, sir.
All right, real good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first speaker in opposition is Mr. Josh Matthews.
Hello, my name is Josh Matthews. I live at 3274 Butler Nursery Road. I'm here to speak against P2133. Graduate of Florida Institute of Technology. My background is soil science, surveying, permitting for environmental projects, large construction projects. I have a total of 10 years of experience in this field. Currently, the project is slated for high-density housing with maximized coverage for homes, little open space. This poses a few problems I'd like for you to consider. First, the development has proposed retention ponds. I asked that, are they the proper size and actually located where the water will flow? Many times, developments will place these ponds where the ponds are most convenient and not where the water actually flows. This creates flooding issues for the proposed community and current residents. Second, what is the current guidance for environmental rules that the developer and engineer is proposing for this project? When was the last time this guidance was looked at? The average storm has strength, the average storm strength has increased. The 50-year storm has become the 10-year storm. We need to consider what we are allowing for development-wise that affects the infrastructure of the community. Before the highway was widened, 87 used to drain towards the river. It now no longer does. When the highway was widened, the grade was changed, and this has created issues for the intersection at Tom Starling Road and 87. So I asked, is the developer using the right size and placement for open space, drainage ditches, and retention ponds? What is the current guidance for building practices, and are they sufficient? Should we really be building to the minimum? Do these environmental rules take into account the current conditions and what will be happening in the future? If the 2 points are met or exceeded, what are we going to do with the current water situation at Tom Starling Road? If we don't fix this, the community is based off the sand, so to speak. Like, there's no justification to put in something when we have a water issue. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Donald Matthews.
Thank you. Donald Matthews, 3274 Butler Nursery Road. Reside about 1.5 miles north of this proposed project. My primary concern is safety. I haven't heard that mentioned tonight at all. A little background, I've been in aviation for over 50 years as a pilot, pilot management, pilot training, and currently I'm an aviation safety inspector. And how this ties in, my background has been extensively involved in safety and safety management, identifying hazards, risk analysis, mitigation, basically assessing risk and mitigating them. Not to my knowledge, any of this has been done. The rezoning project of the 33, or the 41 acres turned down, was pulled at the first zoning board meeting in July. And in October, it was turned down for the 104 homes. Safety of the people moving there as well as the community and traveling on NC 87. The state DOT has determined this area to be a red zone as far as traffic hazards, and that starts from Tom Starlin Road, which is north, and it goes all the way down to Sand Hills Road at least, and focus on Tom Starling to Smith Road. The Smith Road on August the 12th, there was a fatal accident making a 180-degree turn in that intersection. Less than a week later, there was another accident, non-fatal. September the 13th at Tom Starlin Road, there was an accident with a tractor trailer that closed the road for 12 hours and extensive cleanup, hazardous material because it was a fuel spill. All this stuff has to do with 180-degree turns. And at that Tom Starlin Road in the past 18 months, there's been numerous accidents, one of those to be fatal. It's obvious this proposed project is very high risk, and the travel on in NC 87 to the community, to get in and out of that community, you're going to have to go one way in, one way out. So anytime you leave that community, you're going to have to go or either come back. You're going to have to make a 180-degree turn at either Tom Starlin Road or Smith Road, where there's been fatal accidents. This community only has one way in, one way out. So you're looking at proposing to put 122 homes in there.
Thank you, sir.
And it's just not going to work.
Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker in opposition is Mr. Chris Matthews.
I think that's Mrs. Ms. White, that's Mrs.
Mrs.
My
It's a-
apologies,
it's-
I'm so very sorry. Thank you.
I'm amused by it. Thank you very much. Chris Matthews, 3274 Butler Nursery Road. And this will conclude the Matthews residence with my speech. At the last hearing, it was stated by the engineering company that they would maintain and be very attentive to the retention ponds that they intended to build. They would tweak it, monitor it, make sure that the flows were right, that the direction was right and accurate, and that there would be no swampy areas. Speaking as a former property manager with a portfolio of approximately 500 units in various types of housing developments and various types of obligations for those condos and homeowners associations located in another state, it's been my experience that homeowners and boards, they're not qualified, they're not engineers on the board, they're not capable of verifying that that the developer, who is long since gone, has established the retention ponds true to what they should have been. With changing weather patterns and tweaks, it does not occur. In Pennsylvania, where I'm referencing, they had septic systems that required pumping stations. Well, in the wintertime, they froze. You want to talk about the thing hitting the fan? It was brutal. And you have retirees living in these properties monitoring and how to implement it. Another thing that was stated is that Mr. Charleston previously mentioned how well the community would be designed and developed. Well, I have an aerial shot. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest picture, but in this shot, you can see McKee's home, which is the developer. Rockfish Creek, the entrance to Rockfish Creek, when you're driving along Tom Starling Road, looks really attractive, like it's warm and fuzzy with a lot of vegetation. But you go back and you take a tour, it's not so aesthetically pleasing. The closest thing to trees in the front yard are one of those wooden signs that say welcome that you can get at Hobby Lobby, and you place it by the front door. That's the extent of wood on the lawn. There are no trees. Look, it looks like a zipper. That's it. No trees, no amenities. If there's a buffer, it's because of the trees that are on our property that buffer it from the road. That's the homestead. You can't see it from the air. What the white spot is the barn, the metal barn. I don't think they're being truthful and upfront and to the point. They want the job done. They want the land. Because if they get this land, then they get to go and bust up all the other lots that are out there. We're putting our money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miss Ethel McKellar.
How much time is it? 15 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Ethel McKellar, 2240 Ola Burns Drive, and I'm speaking for the Spearman family. We have lived in that area for over 60 years, and we've had a problem with the flooding in the yard and everything for this length of time. What we're concerned about is that it will be a backup of water on our land because the property sits in front of our property. There's also a problem with the traffic. Now, Mr. Matthews had brought all that out about the traffic coming in and out of there. We live on Old Burns Drive. There's one way in, and once you come north down to get onto Old Burns Drive, you have to make a right. If you're not traveling real fast, whenever the lights changes, they'll run over you before you even make that right turn to get into Old Burns Drive. And when we get ready to go out, we have to sit there and wait forever because the traffic is so busy. They were talking about putting in a turning lane, but I don't see where the turning lane would go to because there's really no space for them to put a turning lane in there. And I still think there's just too many houses in that area. And the growth in that area with the other developments that they have put, they have easier access to 87 than coming off of Old Branch Drive. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Mr. McRae, and he will have the remaining time so that the opposing side reaches the 10 limit per the procedures.
Jim McRae, 647 Marsh Road, Graves Creek, been out there 30 years. You folks are the gatekeepers of our community. We rely on you to make good decisions for the growth of our community. This is an area way outside of Fayetteville. This is way too dense of development. It causes traffic problems, water problems, infrastructure problems. It's not urban. I was on the planning, the staff that came up with the 2030 plan. This was never contemplated. Zero lot line, 15,000 square foot lots. I wish I had more time.
Thank
You
you.
do, you got 3 more minutes.
Jim, you do. You got another 3 minutes.
That was the 10 minutes. If the board wants to grant more time, you can, but the 10 minutes per side's been used.
Thank you very much, sir. There aren't any more speakers.
There are no further speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments by the board?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Keith.
Mr. Howard.
Yes, sir.
Applicant originally had R.75, right?
Correct.
And then came into R15, right?
Correct.
But, I mean, really, this R15 it's a conditional zoning. I mean, they're going right back to 7.5. They are. I mean, they're reducing, the lot size has to be 15,000 square feet in R15. And they want it, with the conditional zoning, they want it to go back to 7,300. They require a 15-foot setback on R15. This one only requires 5 feet. This is a zero lot line in a rural area. And it is not the intent of the rural setting. It bothers me personally as a commissioner that I have to make this decision on it, that they're trying to pass this as R15 under a cloak, and saying that they've made all these concessions with R75. It's an R75 thing, an R75 project with all these conditional zonings on it. It's not appropriate in my thing. Is there any reason that you can tell me that may tell me that I'm wrong with the conditional zoning? It's you.
Well, I mean, if you look at, I will definitely acknowledge, Commissioner, that there are some concessions being made in regards to setbacks and lot area for the lots.
What are the concessions they made from R75 to R15?
Well, to go to R15, if it was just a generic R15, you'd have a 15,000 square foot minimum lot area, and then you'd have a 35-foot rear yard and a 10-foot side and 30-foot front.
Right.
So the proposal that they're doing is basically keeping the front and the rear. The lot size is going down to about 7,400 square feet, and the side yards are 5 feet. But the density would remain the same. So the lots are smaller, but the number of lots that would be otherwise allowed on the site would remain at an R15 standard.
Right. And we've had a number of developments that have come up here that we've been looking at R30s that we have considered that have the restrictions and setbacks of an R30 zoning, and this lot just does not fit. I mean, this development does not fit. So as far as I'm concerned, and to Mr. Charleston's, and I appreciated his passion, but highest and best use of people's property, and I always look at that, but what's the point of zoning at all if someone can put a food line in the middle of a neighborhood? Or they can take single lot residents and put multifamily housing. It's not, it may be the highest and best use, but it's not appropriate for all the neighborhood. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, I have a couple questions too. Not this time, but did staff recommend the original approval of 7.5?
I don't think yes, we did. Yes, we did, because they met the land use plan requirements for whatever those size lots are for that time.
Okay, and is that all of that, or can you go up above where it starts saying
I can show you I think that's why we put this picture in here for the aerial. I'm sorry if it's busy and convoluted or whatever, but you can see the property is highlighted here. This is Tom Starling that is here. This is 87 that's coming down this way. And then
yeah,
this
at
is
the top
Sand
of
Hill
Tom
Road
Starling,
right
what is the residents up there? What are the restrictions up there? It looked like there was one R15 that was in that last little picture. See?
Yeah, so you have R15s that are up there. Yes, sir. Let me see if I can find a better picture. So it's sort of a mix. You have A1, RR, R15. I mean, you've got a combination of a lot of different stuff going down Tom Starling.
Is Penny Stone down Tom Starling?
Is what?
Penny.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I've been out to Penny Stone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Penny
It's
Stone?
further down,
It's
but it
further
is
down,
on,
yeah.
yes, sir,
It's
but it
further
is
down.
off Tom
But
Starling.
that's where it all flooded and the creek comes around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just got one or two questions, because I saw that, and I'm not sure how it, and I may be reading wrong, it says, and I heard the lady talk, I heard from the yard, because it talks about possible wetlands out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we won't find that out until the applicant gets in there to figure it out, which could change the whole config of all some of the property, because you really can't build on that, on those wetlands.
Correct. Not without special permits, like Army Corps permits and things like that.
So what, and we're just trying to figure out, because we got a whole lot of problems with water and rain and everything coming down Tom Starling, down 87, maybe being before you were here, and maybe, I'm gonna go with Tracy, maybe, my emergency management person. Am I kind of wrong as to where it was, or can you give me some kind of idea?
So at the intersection of Tom Starling and Highway 87, there's a gas station. It's been built since I got here in 2015. And there was flooding during Hurricane Matthew on the south side of Tom Starling near that intersection.
Right here?
With Highway 87. There's probably 6 to 10 inches in those property owners' yards that are just behind the gas station.
6 to 10 inches of what?
Of water.
Are there any more comments or questions? If not, is there a motion? Yes, Commissioner Keefe.
Yes, in the case of P21-33, I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 Agricultural District to R15 Residential District conditional zoning for a zero lot line subdivision for up to 104 lots, and find the request is not consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan and the designation of low-density residential. Denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest due to concerns of traffic and drainage and many other things.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you, Board.
Item 4D, Mr. Chairman, is case zoning 21-0011.
And if we could have 1 minute, just in case anyone would like to leave.
No. I remember Tom Starling Road, and I remember the zoning. I rode out there and I saw it myself. Yeah. I remember.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So the next case we have is Z210011. As you can see by the highlighted map, the star, this is located off Cumberland Road in the pretty much the southern part of Fayetteville, as you can see by the star. So the applicant is, and I hope I am saying this correctly, is Kojo Kuwasi. So the request is going from R6A, which is a high-density residential district, to CP Plan Commercial, which is our more intense commercial designation. So the intent is for auto sales and incidental towing. So you can see that the case here is highlighted in red along Cumberland Road. You can see maybe some of the cross streets. You can see Boone Trail, which is a major cut through going through town here. So this just sits on this side of Boone Trail. But you pretty much the existing property is a towing service right now. So I'll just go ahead and just, if you don't mind, just cut to the chase for a moment of this. The applicant just wishes to buy the property beside and behind him to expand the towing business and maybe doing some car sales. So that's kind of the nut and bolts of it. So that's the reason why the request looks kind of odd and not squared off. It's because it's being tied in with this piece of property here to square off the corner. But you can see what's around there. You got a single-family subdivision area that's just behind it on Hopedale Street. You have just various types of commercial development. I won't sort of just rattle those off because I know a lot of you probably know where all this is anyway. The zoning is a lot of commercial and residential. You can see we have C1P that's further down Cumberland Road near Carvine Street. You have some in the city of Fayetteville. You have an industrial designation, and then you have R6 and R10 are the predominant residential zoning districts that are around here. But sitting on this corner of the Hopedale Street is C3, which is by today's standards is our CP district, and they already have it designated for their business. There is water out here, but no sewer, but this is an existing business that's been, but this is an existing business that's been in operation and is just looking to expand to be able to keep inventory. When we looked at the land use plan, this is subject to the Southwest Cumberland plan, which does designate this area as heavy commercial. So you can see it's designated in the red, so staff felt that it was consistent with the adopted land use plan. When you look at the site from as you're standing on Cumberland Road, as I said before, this is a towing business, so this is the business itself, as you can see here, Sam's Towing. When you're looking east on Cumberland Road, the site is immediately across the street on your left, as you can see. That's sort of like heading to the overpass as you're coming back into town. This is looking south on Cumberland Road across the street. See, it's a single-family home. And this is looking west on Cumberland Road. You can see the sign that we post out there as per state statute requirements. So staff had recommended approval of the request, and when this went to the planning board in October, it passed by a unanimous 8-0 vote. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer what I can, and I do believe the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there anybody that's speaking? We have any speakers?
We have 3 speakers in favor and no speakers in opposition. Our
Okay.
first speaker in favor is Mr. Kujo Kuzi.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you everybody here. I get this property for doing a business because I have a taxi business before, and everything is going bad. I can't get a good place, and I found that location, and I try my best to zone it to as a commercial. The reason why I just filed application and I'm here today.
That it, sir?
That's it.
Well, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Our second speaker is Mr. P. De La Preta.
Hi, my name is Peter LaPretta, 5428 Mesa Drive. I go by the property mostly every day, and I see a big improvement of how nice and clean it is. It's up to date. A lot of the garbage is out of there and off the property. It's fenced in now, and I see it's well lit at night. Security cameras on the property. I know Mr. Koji, and he employs several people in the community, and he's looking to put more people to work. And I see no objection to rezone this, and that's about it.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Madam Clerk?
Our final speaker is Herbert Towns.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Herbert Towns. I live at 8226 English Saddle Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm retired military. I'm a nationwide insurance agent and have been so for the last 28 years here in Cumberland County. Mr. Quasi is a client of mine, and the reason I'm here to support him in his entrepreneurial support to get this location rezoned. When he first came to me and told me he wanted to expand his business in this period of COVID, there are not many people are looking to expand the business, just trying to hold on to what they got. And so I told him, so let's go for it. I support you. If anything I can help you with, please let me know. When we first looked at this location, it was horrendous. It was an eyesore. He purchased the property. We worked to clean it up, get the eyesore out, and now you see the nice looking building we put there. I made him follow all the requirements for insuring the property. We had to put a new roof on the house. We renovated the inside of the property so it would meet insurance standards. And so based on that and his entrepreneurial spirit, I'm just here to support Mr. Quasi and hope you can give him strong consideration on this process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more speakers?
There are no
Madam Clerk?
further speakers.
No further speakers. We'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board? If not,
I have a
yes,
question.
yes, Commissioner
I
Adams.
have a motion.
I know you- Once this is home, how big is the entire, then becomes the entire lot? Because I understand what's there now, but once we turn it into this, it can be whatever can be used for that designation. And you know, I'm just a Cumberland Road kind of guy. I've talked about Cumberland Road forever in terms of us having some kind of plan going up and down. I've kind of voted against everything going up and down Cumberland Road.
Yes, you have.
I have. So how big would this plot be?
So the existing size of the tract now is just a little under a half acre, it's 0.47. So just by eyeballing it, I would say you're probably looking at 3/4 of an acre, maybe to 80%, whatever, 0.8.
Are there any more questions or comments from the board? If not, Commissioner Council.
Get my glasses now. I move to approve the rezoning request from R6A residential to CP Plan Commercial District and find that the request is consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan, which calls for heavy commercial at this location. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the CP Plan Commercial District would allow commercial development in harmony with the scale, size, appearance, and accessibility of the surrounding land use activities and zoning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Thank you, board.
Mr. Chairman, our final zoning case is case zoning 21-0014.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you can see indicated by the star, this is pretty much east central Cumberland County out toward the Vander area. The applicant owner is Mr. Anthony Grant. The request is to go from A1 to R20. The intent, or at least that was expressed to us as a part of our dialogue with the applicant, was to put a duplex type of development there.
Wait a minute, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, duplex?
Duplex.
Duplex.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You don't want to know what I thought you said.
Okay. You don't want to know. Fair enough.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right, ma'am. Commissioner, that's fine. I would like to know what you thought he said.
No.
So the site itself, you can see, is highlighted here in red. It sits on the corner of Huckleberry Road and Santa Rosa, for those of you that might know where this is. And then, of course, the main intersection out here is Santa Rosa and Baywood that you can see here. I'll show you in the colors here in just a minute, but you can see it's primarily a residential area. But you can see you got single family, you got manufactured homes, and you have a little bit of commercial. You have Carter's repair shop sitting just behind the site up here on the corner, but for the most part, it's a lot of agricultural and residential areas out there. This color scheme should help you a little bit better to see some of the zoning out there. So right across the street, you have RR zoning. Those lots are a little bit bigger, the little bit acre lots. But for the most part, you see R15, R40A, A1. I mean, you got really just a just really interesting mix of different types of residential types of zoning out there. So this particular piece of property has water that is access to that. No immediate sewer is available, even though it's in the region, or I won't say the region, it's in the area. It is not immediately accessible to the property itself. When we looked at this is the subject to the Eastover plan, which calls for rural density residential, which is a minimum of 20,000 square feet. And you can see all of the called out districts that we look at for things that would be compliant. Calls for R20. You see R20A, RR, and so forth, but the applicant is requesting R20, so we felt it was consistent with the adopted land use plan. When you look at the subject property, you can see here we have two shots of this out in the front, but as you're sitting there standing on Santa Rosa Road, you can see the property with a mobile home that's out there, which I understand now has been pulled off the site, so I believe the site has been, it has not been, okay, I apologize then. Sorry. So, A little bit further down the road, you can see the subject property with the mobile home sitting there off in the distance. This is the west view on Santa Rosa with the site immediately on the left-hand side. This is the north view looking immediately across the street. And then this is looking east on Santa Rosa Road, where you can see, of course, the zoning sign that we place out for state statute requirements. Staff had recommended approval of the request. When this went to the planning board, they had recommended denial by an 8-0 vote. So if you've got any questions, I'll try to answer what I can.
Thank you so much. Let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have one speaker in favor, two speakers in opposition. Our speaker in favor is Mr.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Anthony Grant, 365 McKinley Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut, 06604. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. At the previous hearing, I was called a builder and an outsider. I'm neither of those. I'm the grandson of Hodges and Ira Tucker, and this property has been in my family for well over 50 years. So while I didn't live here in Eastover full-time, I spent every summer here as a child on Santa Rosa Road until my grandfather passed away. My initial application request was for rezoning my grandparents' property, was asking rezone from A1 to R20. During the last hearing, Mr. Burton had asked me how many homes that I want to put onto the property. I said I would put 3 homes maximum. Mr. Lloyd then asked me if I would be willing to switch my request from R20 to R40, and I did accept that. They did offer contingencies because they were not open to me building duplexes on the property. But as A1, currently, I can build one single duplex on the property as it is now. So afterwards, speaking to Mr. Lloyd, I did accept the R40. I'm still willing to accept R40. The opposition also, Mrs. Leonard, stated support of R40, being that it would allow fewer homes than R20. Our zoning 40 fits within the line of the zoning properties in the area. There are several homes that are R40A and RR. Thank you for my time. I hope this request is approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our first speaker in opposition is Ms. Janet Leonard.
Good evening. My name's Janet Leonard, 3999 Santa Rosa Road, 28312. I'm here on behalf of my family and our community. If you'll raise your hand, please, those in opposition. Thank you. At the last meeting, it was brought up that a possibility of rezoning and the actual A1 be put in place. And I did not agree to anything that included any duplexes or multifamily housing, so I do want to make that clear at this point. I too have been there my entire life. I'm 47 years old, and I spent all of it, about 4.5 years, on Santa Rosa Road at the property that you saw up there that was pictured. Our goal is to keep our area as a rural setting with low density. The request for reasoning to R20 is not in like of kind of the property. A duplex or multifamily home is also not of like and kind to the property that you see surrounding it. We wish for the density to remain scarce. Properties adjacent or within 1 mile radius of Santa Rosa Road and Huckleberry are zoned to include greater than 1 acre, including the 4 lots that are RR, and those lots are 1.2, 1.5, 1.2, and 1.1 acres. The lots that you saw that are R15 are not accessible from Huckleberry Road. They are not accessible from Santa Rosa Road. We wish to keep our area in a sparse density with no condominiums, no apartments, no duplexes, no multifamily dwellings. We do not have the infrastructure to support an influx of another population there. We do not have sewer, as was mentioned. Most of our first responders are volunteers. We would also have to look at response time for both your EMS as well as your Sheriff's Department. The property owners are in opposition and wish to keep this zone for single-family dwellings only. The Eastover Land Use Plan was adopted as a municipal impact document and is used to be a guideline. Under this plan, there should be same and similar opportunities for all families and a legacy to be provided in similar properties as mentioned. We, the residents of Santa Rosa Road and the surrounding area, ask that you vote against the rezoning of this property to keep the area zone low density and of like in kind of what is currently there, being A1, R40, and other A1. We hope that you will vote in opposition of the rezoning request and support the community that supports you all on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Our final speaker in opposition is Chastity Rice.
Welcome, Ms. Rice.
Chastity Rice, 830 Shadow Moss Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Actually on the same side of the road as the sign, just in, we have a long driveway that we kind of enter and only 6 houses in there. I get this is all about money for some people, but for us, it's our family, it's our community, it's our family's land around it. It's sweat and tears, it's working 3 jobs, and most of all, our heart. This is something I never thought I'd have to be dealing with in our own backyard. We moved here over 25 years ago. This is the home my son was brought to from the hospital 22 years ago. This is the community of family that we have surrounded ourselves for love, support, safety, and comfort. We want to keep the little bit of country, community, and land we have left. It's easy to see a couple acres and throw something up on it, turn a buck, sell it, and then we're left to deal with all the aftermath. We want to protect what we've built. We want the little bit of roar we have left. I don't want to see our deer, black bear, fox, and bobcats go away. They have nowhere to go as it is. I know each of you would feel the exact same way if this was happening in your backyard. Thank you.
I don't know about the foxes.
There are no further speakers.
No more speakers. Close the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Keefe.
Thank you. Mr. Howard? In A1, a duplex would not be allowed, would it?
You can do pretty much any kind of multifamily or single family across all zoning districts. It's really geared towards how much space do you have.
What's the difference between, well, we have this all the time when somebody has a residence and they want to put another, like a, is that not treated the same as 2 different separate residences?
We treat it as what's called a group development when they come in, so we look at it as basically a site plan review of what you can be able to get in there. So the thing about single-family homes, the way that that's designated is that if you do single-family homes or like a mobile home or a single-family home, once you trigger a 3rd home on your property, it's considered to be, for mobile homes, it's considered to be a mobile home park at that particular time. So that's only going to be germane for mobile homes. But as far as single family or anything stick built, you could do that.
Okay. So right now, as the property is right now, if the landowner wanted to sell it at A1, he could put 1 dwelling on there, but he could put a multifamily dwelling on
I think we ran those numbers. Did you say they can put 1 duplex building up there, right?
That's what's in there.
Short of the acreage, one unit.
Yeah, so they could put 1 unit on there right now.
1 unit, but it could be a duplex. No. Okay, that's where I was going. All right, thank you.
Wait a minute. No, that's not what this.
Because the landowner believes he can put a duplex on there.
This is. The action plan said that too. Because I read it.
2 acres per A1.
Right.
Group development, they would need 3.51 acres to have a duplex.
Yeah.
And how many is it now?
3.35.
Okay. So right now, a single A1 single family dwelling, correct?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Stewart.
I just have a motion. I don't have a comment.
Okay, before you make your motion, is there any other questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? If not, Commissioner Stewart.
I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 Agricultural District to R20 Residential District and find the request is not consistent with the Eastover Land Use Plan, which calls for rural density residential at this location. Denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the request district is not compatible with the character of the surrounding area.
Second.
Okay.
Well, I got some discussion because there's a R40A right not far from that, and so and the petitioner is saying he won't do he doesn't want to do he did R20, but he'd be willing to do R40. which then changes it from the R20 to the R40. So I'd probably vote in opposition to this because I think the R40 would be reasonable. It falls within the land use plan of this area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Stewart, would you like to restate your motion?
I do not.
She did not.
I do not.
Is there a second?
It was already seconded by Mr. Bruce.
Okay. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Council, Commissioner Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Booth, and Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Madam,
You want to clear the room?
yeah, let's take time to clear the room if that needs to be.
Okay, have a good evening.
Finished. Two more weeks.
The only thing that scared me about it, he can put them all right there on the road. I mean, it's just way on 40. It's not good. I agree with you.
Move to adjourn. Move to adjourn.
I have been complaining about the size of the sign. I can't see it. But, we are pretty
You were so right.
Do we need to talk to the,
Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this evening we have one item of business under number 5, and this is an item that was discussed at the agenda session last Tuesday, November the 9th. It's a discussion and consideration of a new vault doorway for the Register of Deeds office. Our county engineer, Mr. Jermaine Walker, is going to update the board on progress he's made with this project since the agenda session.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening, sir.
So this item was heard on November 9th at the agenda session with the lowest and responsive and responsible bid coming in from M&E Contracting to the amount of somewhere around $125,000, which left a cost shortfall of $37,000 for the project. So since then, what we've asked the contractor to do was to evaluate their reverse work schedule because the majority of the cost was having to work at night so that wouldn't disturb the courts during the process. So we're looking at what items could be performed during the day with certain caveats in coordination with the court system. We're also looking at de-scoping the terrazzo floor and going something more of a finished concrete. That cost will be close to about 17% of the cost of the project. And we expect to receive a revised bid by the end of the week.
Yes, Commissioner Wood.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I was going to make a motion, definitely yes to the door, no to the floor. I sent out, I don't know if you got
I saw your pictures. Yes,
That's
sir.
going to be a T-shirt, yes.
I was told that, oh, no, everything else is so aesthetic and smooth, and I said, no, I can stand in one room and see 4 different floors. If you stand right there where you're going in to ask for your court date, you can stand on carpet, walk across vinyl, and there's not enough carpet for you to stand on. They put the boards down and left you a foot of carpet there, and then on the other side of this board, it's tile all the way until carpet starts. So if they had just, I mean, it's not smooth. I don't care if they put a big picture of Lee Warren there. That would be cheaper than trying to match 50-year-old terrazzo. I mean, we can do a county seal. I'd be in favor of a picture of you for getting this thing down under budget. So, I mean, you know, I still say yes, I still move that we approve the door. Whoa. That we approve the request for the door for all the reasons stated earlier and continue to work on managing the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I wasn't here at the meeting when you all discussed this again. But I have concerns about this and this added cost that it's going to put on the Board of Commissioners and on county tax dollars, because if I'm not mistaken, there's still that other door there that could be used, the other entryway that could be used other than tearing up that door on the outside in the hallway, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, and so remind us once again, if you have your notes with us, what that cost would be?
To just open up the pre-existing doorway, it would only cost the labor of just removing the wall unit that's there. There's already a pre-existing doorway.
Okay.
It would take some coordination between departments for that to happen.
Okay, just a coordination between departments to make sure that everything goes smoothly with that transaction happening, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we're talking about opening a new doorway, correct?
Creating a doorway through a concrete masonry unit
Creating
wall.
a doorway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the creation of that doorway will cost us how much?
Well, the current proposal is coming in at $125,000. We're looking to get that below $100,000.
Okay, let me say this, if you don't mind, and I may be a day late, dollar short, but we were talking about redoing the courthouse over across the street. And a lot of objection came to that because we were talking about building a new administration building for offices here in the courthouse. And I don't know how much sense it would make to spend that kind of money if we're talking about building a new administration building. And furthermore, and to tear up this hallway to create another door. Didn't we just say that there was another door, another entranceway that could be used? And I know I may be a dollar late, dollar short, or so. I might be totally wrong. I don't think so. But there was another, as you stated, was another place that could be utilized other than creating another entry into this particular office, correct?
So there is a pre-existing doorway. Right now, it's covered up with a series of wall units, which the Register of Deeds uses when patrons come in and look up documents online. They're able to use personal computers there and print off their documents.
Well, I do think that maybe we need to reconsider this. If we are still talking about building another annexation or another part to this courthouse to accommodate different offices and this, I just think that maybe we need to rethink this or revisit it or do something with it other than moving forward with it right away. We're spending a lot of money now. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the only, and I would not know and I would not seek the forecast, but even if we built a new building, the way the Register of Deeds operates with the clerk's office in terms of searching of deeds and all of that, to move the Register of Deeds office out would probably be a bigger problem than leaving it where it is with consideration of what else goes on. And I think that in terms of those that come in who's doing the zoning, the plats, and the attorneys, that's what this door is, to get them out of that line to fuel that, which I think increases the efficiency of the Register of Deeds office. I think the efficiency and the health risk far outweigh the $100,000 that, and hopefully it'll come in less than that, If you do Mr. Boost's, it will come in less than that because you won't be tearing up that terraza. But I do think that this is a project that's worthy of moving forth to be able to do that. And that's just my little voice as we contemplate this issue.
Well, and it is strange, sir, and not to be argumentative, but it's strange that we would talk about health issues and concerns that, and that was part of the reasons that was addressed about redoing the courthouse across the street. Because you had individuals sitting there, rodents in their clothing and all around them, and trash and everything else for our employees.
Well, I thought we still moving forth on that. It hadn't stopped. It's a part of a greater project that's going on. I don't think that that's been derailed at all in terms of what's happening over there. It may be that we may not move over there, but to take care of those employees, I think after Commissioner Stewart showed us all of that, those bottles with the waters and all of that, that's still on the forefront of what we do.
Well, was there ever a motion made during any, I can't recall. Was there ever a motion made during our agenda session that we move forward with doing that?
I think she beating that thing to death down there. But yes, Mr.
I am, because you all are having a conversation and I'm following the rules by mashing my button.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Commissioner
Don't
Council.
like it.
Excuse me?
I said I don't like it.
And I
That's my
understand
fault.
because I don't
I
like it.
apologize.
I don't
I
like it when it
apologize.
happens as well. And we were going back and forth. And I'm sorry, so I'm going to recognize now Commissioner Council.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Look, something came to my mind, and I didn't ask it in the session the other day. How much money does the Register of Deeds office provide
Provide?
to our general?
I believe their revenue is, I think, well, about $1 million a year, I believe.
Okay. Now, that's what I remember, is something about $1 million. And for health reasons, and for stopping all of that traffic that goes in there, I don't think $137, no, $37 glasses, $37,028 is too much. I know, I feel you. I know where you're going with this. But we're not going to build a new anything right now. So that will improve the traffic.
Okay, well, Commissioner Adams.
And you know, I think at the agenda setting conference, I talked about us being in the census tract and for the COVID health reasons, possibly using ARP funds, or, you know, the infrastructure bill was passed, signed today by the president. So there are other funds coming down. So I think we can do it maybe possibly without going in the general fund, or at some point looking at that and leaving that to management's, whatever way they decide the best way to fund that. Oh, was this in the CIP? Is it not? No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, one question,
Oh,
and this infrastructure funds that was just signed today, how would that assist in that effort?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff coming down in the infrastructure that hasn't set it up yet, but the ARP funds for COVID problems and the census tract could possibly be used, because that's to change the direction and the flow of the traffic.
Commissioner Booth.
You pull that, you gotta pull that over.
We are looking into that.
Commissioner Booth.
Charles, I wish you'd been there with me. It was the end of the meeting. We'd been beaten down. Glenn was calling stuff. We all asked for a break, and he said, no, sit down. You know, it was a nightmare, and I was weak and battered, and I was the only one that didn't vote for this. And I didn't not vote for it for the door. It's just that the floor. I've been in these floors since 1981, and there's nothing consistent or cute about them. So, anyway, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
knowing, and you know how fond I am of change orders, but if we gave you a $100,000 budget, and then you could always come back, but at this time, do you think that that would be enough to get this thing moving from go, like now, to get it moving?
It would give us enough funding to get the project moving, especially if we de-scope the terrazzo flooring.
Okay.
I think you got your director there.
Thank you. I would move that we approve the door and a building fund up to $100,000 at this point.
Are there any questions and comments? Question.
Mr. Evans.
We've discussed this. We've discussed this. But I want to go back to, and I know somebody will say this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it does have something to do with what we're talking about. But I want to go back to that old courthouse and the funding for that. And the way that Commissioner Stewart had completely showed us how bad the situations are there for employees. I hope that we will revisit that in the very near future, since money is no object to us.
Mr. Chair?
So, I'm done.
Mr. Chair?
That's low.
I might be able to add just a little bit of clarity, because originally we did have a motion
Yes.
that we were going to
Commissioner Key.
dedicate up to $3 million. I found out what the inside of a woodshed looks like. But Mr. Walker came back. We're doing a comprehensive reassessment of the courthouse with all of the historic courthouse with the things that we're looking at. I reluctantly agreed to put that $3 million on hold with Commissioner Stewart's, with her insight on what's going on to get a comprehensive look on the renovation of that courthouse, still being able to use some of the ARP funding if we need to. Is that, Commissioner Stewart, is that a good synopsis of it?
That is a good synopsis of it.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, so-
Commissioner, if I may, we started the kickoff meeting for that study last week. We front-loaded that as a part of the General Government Services Building and a master plan study. And so once that data is compiled, we'll bring it back to the board immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, was there a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
You voted for it.
Yeah, but
He's a team player. Man. He's a team player.
Way to go!
You see what that looks like? You see what that looks like, Glenn? You see what that looks like? Even though you don't like it, sometimes you vote for
I
it.
did, I voted for the other one.
sometimes you have to hold your nose
Yeah, hold your-
and vote.
Hold your peace, hold your peace.
You just saved $50,000, Charlie.
Okay, nominations.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman, the Cumberland
Is that
County
right, Madam Manager?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Workforce Development Board, the recommendations for the representative for education and training, Dr. Yasmin Fairley, and the representative for business, Mr. Mark Wilderman, and the representative of workforce, James Carl Manning. For the joint Fort Bragg and Cumberland County Food Policy Council, there's 5 vacancies. The member involved with local farming and agricultural position, Nathan Crew. A member who worked in the field of healthcare, public health, food insecurities, Yahiria, Y-A-H-A-I-R-A. I messed your name up pretty bad. Natterman, so I apologize. And Candace Scott, the co-chair, the civilian chair from Cumberland County position, Sandy Ammons at FTCC, and the member who does not work in local government or health agencies positions, Dr. Anissa Cox. And Mr. Chairman, the last would be the Cumberland County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, which has 1 vacancy, and the recommendation from that board was Teresine Garner as an at-large representative. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no appointments this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Let's recess the Cumberland County Commissioners meeting and convene the Norcross Water and Sewer District Governing Board meeting. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. We have two items on the Norcrest Water and Sewer consent agenda. Item A is approval of the minutes of the August 17th, 2020, and the April 19th, 2020 Norcrest Water and Sewer District Governing Board meetings. Item 8B is approval of the request for qualifications for engineering services to assist with the Norcrest capital improvements. This item was presented at your agenda session on Tuesday, November the 9th, and also included on today's consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second?
Well, I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn the Norcrest Water and Sewer District Governing Board meeting. We're going to reconvene the regular Board of the County Commissioners meeting, and our Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council members are gone.
They voted when other people voted, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one thing before we adjourn?
Yes, sir.
Your last meeting, I appreciate all the work and dedication that you had to the group. We've done a lot of things this year, and I want to tell you, I appreciate your leadership, and it's been fun.
I tell you what, it has been fun. It's been different. I've enjoyed it. I thank all of you for your help in going through this year. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
You crying?
Second.
You crying?
You crying? Look at his eyes,
See?
We started with tears, we end with tears.
Adjourn.
Who's that smart guy?